Okay, if you're looking at getting property overseas, one thing that you really need to take in consideration is squatters, especially when you get in, maybe not places that are downtown, but places that that are more remote. Although it can happen if they have those laws in the country, it doesn't make any difference. They can go in a downtown city and squat on your property while you're gone, and you're going to have a headache. There's a lot of countries in the world that have this. Two countries I can tell you we see a lot of problems in the press is the UK. Believe it or not, the UK has it, and Panama. Panama is really bad. I remember when I went down to Panama, I was living there for about 4 years, and Panama had I had a guy that was showing me some property down near the coastal area, and really pretty area. And we were walking on this property. He owned quite a bit of land, and I was looking at buying it. And he was telling me about this squatter, and we were walking up to this area that was just beautiful, up high overlooking the ocean off in the distance. And I said, "Man, this would be a great place to live." He says, he started laughing. He says, well, he pointed to this bare spot. He says, "Well, I'll tell you a story." He says, "The place that you're talking about right here is where he said I had to run a squatter off." And I said, "Oh, really?" Well, he picked the nicest place on your property to squat. He says, "You wouldn't believe the hassles and headaches." He said, "I spent thousands and thousands of dollars getting this guy off." And he says, "I've even got a squatter security guard on my land." But he says, the problem is once they squat on your property, you can't tear their stuff down. Even if he comes right in front of you, if he gets that property set up in Panama, you have to go through the court system, and you're going to have to pay thousands. He doesn't pay anything. Squatter doesn't pay anything, but you pay thousands of dollars to get his butt out of there. He finally got him out of there, but it took years of getting him out and thousands of dollars. And this is the problem that you have in places that have squatter rights. I would tell you to strongly think twice about getting property in places that have real strong squatter rights. And this is where you basically, if you own a property and someone comes in and you're gone or away for a while, or even you're not, you got a squatter security guard on your property. But this guy comes in and he puts up his lean-to or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a house. It can be a lean-to or whatever. Once he gets that structure up, man, you just can't tear it down. You can get all kinds of trouble, okay? That's the way Panama's laws are. So you basically have to go through the court system and literally almost have to get, in some cases, get a sheriff to get his butt out of there, okay, once you win the case, if you can win it. All right, here's a case in the UK, of all places you would think would not have this, where squatter, he won a battle over a dead woman's home, and he sells it for a huge profit. This is incredible. This just drives people nuts when they see stuff like this. But anyway, a man in the UK, he took over a retiree's empty home in London, and he gained legal ownership of it under a quirky ancient Roman law. And he sold the property for profit, and the local media was talking about. And a British construction worker identified as Keith Best spotted an empty 3-bedroom semi-detached home. And we're not talking about remote area, okay? We're talking about, this is in the city area, okay? But this is an empty 3-bedroom semi-detached home in London's Newbury Park back in 1997 while working a construction job nearby. According to the Express, Best began renovating the property and ultimately moved his home or his family into the home in 2012. Okay, so this guy's been in there for years, and but the house, however, belonged to retiree Colin Curtis, who lived on the property with his mother until the late 1990s when he moved out. Now, Curtis inherited the property, but under what has been described as a quirky ancient Roman law that allows someone in possession of a good without title to become the lawful proprietor if the original owner didn't show up after some time. And Best became the home's legal owner the Guardian was talking about. And this came out in the Guardian news report. But it talked about here that Best had filed an application for an adverse possession about a decade ago in order to legally obtain the property. And the chief land register initially denied the application following a law that criminalized squatting. The ruling was overturned by the High Court in 2014 when a judge ruled the registrar's decision was founded on an error of law. I mean, isn't this something? This guy just literally took the house away from this family and he sold it. It's just incredible. The squatter, dressed in owner's clothes, raided fridge in a ritzy beach house. The police were talking about here. Now, the judge ruled that previous laws approached squatting rules or issues as civil matters. And despite the judge finding Curtis committed criminal trespass, he was granted ownership of the home. And the judge found that at least 10 years had passed without effective action by the owner to take control of the property. Well, big deal. It's not his property. I mean, this is incredible. These are the type of things. But anyway, the judgment recognizes that making residential squatting a criminal offense was not intended to impact on the law of adverse possession, which is an old and quirky law. Best Attorney said back in 2014, it's quirky law that benefits the economy because unused, unclaimed land and property gets recycled back into the use. This is incredible. But here's one, squatter dressed in owner's clothes, raided fridge in ritzy in a beach house. But this is another one that happened. But anyway, they talked about here that Curtis died in 2018 at age 80, and the Daily Mail reported had filed a counterclaim against the judge's ruling. However, it was dismissed due to him not being listed as the executor of his mother's estate. His mom, Doris Curtis, died in the 1980s and had no will. Now, Curtis said that before his death that he was unaware that he had to apply to become the administrator of his mother's estate. And this ought to be a warning to people that these are things you have to do if people don't leave a will, or even if they do leave a will, make sure those things are in order. But after moving out of the property in 1996, he continued paying council taxes on the home, but rarely visited the house. Now, I mean, these are, but the house has a very troubled past because there is no way that Best should have got his hands on it for free. And a lot of people around here they talked about are still very angry that he was allowed to get away with it and that the law backed him. A neighbor told the Daily Mail about this. Now, Doris would have been turning her grave if she'd known about this. There were a very hardworking East End family, and her descendants should have benefited from this house, but the family who live there now are wonderful, and it's nice to see as a loving home. Once again, you can't blame them for what happened. The home was worth roughly, listen to this, 400,000 pounds sterling. That's around close to $500,000 US. When Best took over the property, he sold the home to another person that's 35 years old for, listen to this, 540,000. So and this is in pounds sterling. So he made $682,000 off a home that wasn't even his house. He made a profit of roughly around 140,000 pounds sterling, or around 177,000 US dollars. I mean, this is just incredible. But this, his name appeared on all the documents related to the house, and everything was done properly. And we have nothing to worry about. Hyatt told the outlet, explaining that he never knew of the home's legal past until journalists contacted him for comment. I never met Mr. Best, but my sisters did twice when they came and saw the property. It was a very good condition, and he seemed like a very genuine man. This sale was done in the proper legal way through solicitors, so we didn't have to have a lot to do with him. But Hyatt even balked at the home's legal history and asked, you know, how can you take over an empty house and make it your own? Isn't that theft? Well, yeah, I mean, but according to the law, it's not. It doesn't make sense to me. He talked about here, how could the courts just allowed him to become the legal owner? Anyway, folks, these are some things that you really ought to be watching for when you go. Just because it's a place like the UK doesn't mean that you're not going to have irregular laws like this. In the UK, I've read many headaches dealing with squatters, but Panama is even worse. And there are loads of countries in Central America that have these squatter laws on the books. So anyway, you need to look into this before, especially if you buy large tracts of land. This is where you have really a lot of problems on it. It can happen anywhere in these two countries. If you want to know more on this and other things, if you want to legally get your income taxes to zero, or how to get a second passport as quick as 4 to 8 months, do 3 things. Hit the subscribe button on the right of your screen right here, and you get new videos automatically as they come out. And number 2 is I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, put it below. And again, go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just ask for some help. And I look forward to talking to you in the next video. Take care.